Namo Phat, good morning. Thank you for joining me for a daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The fifth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I vow to cultivate good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society, by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will ingest only items that preserve peace, well-being, and joy in my body, in my consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family and society. I am determined not to use alcohol or any other items that contain toxins, such as certain TV programs, magazines, books, films, and conversations. I'm aware that to damage my body or my consciousness with these poisons is to betray my ancestors, my parents, my society, and future generations. I will work to transform violence, fear, anger, and confusion in myself and in society by practicing a diet for myself and for society. I understand that a proper diet is crucial for self-transformation and the transformation of society. Our Dharma reading this morning is Abhayagiri is Complete by Ajahn Amaro. This is from Beginning Our Day by the monastics of Abhayagiri Monastery. I'm experiencing a very worldly delight in non-involvement, non-responsibility. It's lovely to be here as a visitor, not having to feel responsible for making all the threads come together, as I did before leaving for Amaravati a couple years ago. But it's also important to note, especially during the busy festival season we're in right now, that the complications that are difficult are not the external ones, like the logistical nightmares that the work monk has to deal with. It's the logistical nightmares inside that are the real troublemakers. It's always good to bring that to mind. It's not the external complications that really make things difficult. It's the way we pick things up, create complications, and tangle things within ourselves. That's the real cause of tension, of dukkha, of stress within. Every monastery is the same during the festival season. It draws together a large, complex array of different tasks that need to be taken care of, with so many extra people lending a hand, while also being part of the mix. As Lungpo Pasano was saying yesterday, we need to lean into the wind in a very conscious way, so as to counteract the tendency we have to create inner complication, because there's such a great potential during this time for getting caught up, being busy, resentful, or excited. Yesterday, when some of us were walking around with Tan Titabo in the morning, we saw many new kutis and the new workshop, which were all built over the last couple of years since I departed. These were things that Lungpo Pasano, myself, and others would fantasize about. It'd be a nice place to have a kuti there, or we could do this here, or maybe we should put the workshop there. Many of these things have suddenly become a reality. Of course, these physical changes took place slowly and steadily over time. So much has evolved since June 1st, 1996, when I, along with Anagarika Tom, now Ajahn Karunadhammo, Debbie, and a gang of others, rolled up to the newly purchased property. On that very first evening, once we'd cleaned up the house, set up the dome tents that we'd be living in, gotten ourselves settled, sorted and settled, I remember thinking, now the monastery is complete. Now it is done. With those words, I was taking a leaf out of Lungpor Liam's book. I remember when preparations were underway for Lungpor Cha's funeral. For his cremation, a very large Buddhist memorial structure called a satya was under construction. A whole new eating hall, road system, water towers, and more than 630 toilets were all under construction simultaneously. During that time, there was someone who was touring the monastery and saw all these different construction projects. He was quite amazed and bewildered. He then saw Lungpor Liam, who was running the whole show and had just come down off the roof of a large building with a welding torch in hand. The man said to Lungpor, "This is incredible. This is amazing. There's so much happening here. I'll bet you'll be really glad when it's finished." And Lungpor Liam responded in his inimitable Lungpor Liam way, "I finish it every day." That is a very simple observation, but coming from Lungpor Liam, it's not merely a nice thing to say. It's not just sophistry, it's the actuality. Yes, we have bare girders here and wet concrete over there, and so many pits for the concrete rings to go in under all these toilets, and they are all sitting out there in heaps. But it's completely finished, just as it is. This is what it is right now. When there's a lot of activity going on, going from here to there, finding this and taking it over there, picking up these gas bottles and moving them over there, taking them to the wrong place and then taking them back, there can be a current or flood of becoming, what is called the oga of becoming, which can be very intense. So it's important during the flow of activity to be leaning into the wind, to be leaning against that. When we do something as simple as fill up the gas tank, we can think, okay, now Abhayagiri is complete. Everything is fully completed. Everything is done. We reflect in that way, even though part of our worldly instinct might say, but look at my list. I have so many things to do, and they are important, and they have my name on them, and I can't brush them away. But with the reflection, Abhayagiri is complete. We can keep that worldly perspective in its appropriate place and recognize that within a larger context, it's just as Lungpor Liam was expressing. It's finished. Even when the gas tank is half filled, it's finished. As you're carrying along the carpets or untangling the flags, it's finished. Even though the knot is still there, it's finished. That's because the Dhamma is here and now. The Dhamma is akaliko, timeless, and it is sandiko, apparent here and now. The Dhamma doesn't simply happen when the knot is untangled, or when the carpet is laid out and all the food is cooked. It's not, okay, the Dhamma is here now, it wasn't here before. The Dhamma is always here. During the morning reflection, it's here already. The Dhamma doesn't just appear after the reflection is finished, when we begin our practice during the day. It's here now. If we remember that, really let the mind awaken to that, then that presence to the Dhamma will inform our every action. We can then attune to the citta, the heart, to that quality, that fundamental, timeless presence of the Dhamma in the midst of activity. Then any external complications won't contribute to any internal complications, to any internal papancha. So without further ado, I offer these thoughts for your consideration today. Enjoy, as they say. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me today.